Imagine this. You're standing in an airport security line. You've already been there for 2 hours, maybe closer to 3. Your flight boards in 40 minutes. The line hasn't moved in what feels like forever. Around you, people are frustrated. Some are clearly panicking. A mother nearby is in tears because she has already missed her flight with 2 children beside her. Then someone next to you says something that instantly changes the way you see the entire situation. A TSA officer at the front just walked off in the middle of a shift. Just left. This is not a movie scene. This is a real disruption unfolding right now in March 2026 at airports across the United States. And if you think this is only about long lines and delayed flights, I need you to pause and follow this carefully because the story is much bigger than that. This affects travel, immigration processing, airport screening, and the broader systems that many travelers, visa holders, and permanent residents rely on every day. What we are looking at is a Department of Homeland Security funding crisis that is now dragged on for 33 days. Let that sink in. Since February 14th, 2026, the Department of Homeland Security, the umbrella agency overseeing TSA, Customs and Border Protection, ICE, USCIS, FEMA, the Coast Guard, and the Secret Service, has been operating under shutdown conditions. Senate lawmakers have voted 4 times without securing a solution. And while headlines have focused on politics, many people still do not fully understand what this means for airport operations, immigration cases, and international travel. So let's go through it clearly because the practical consequences matter far more than the talking points. Let's begin with how this happened. On January 24th, 2026, Customs and Border Protection agents were involved in the killing of a man named Alex Pretti. The incident drew national attention immediately. In response, Senate Democrats said they would no longer support DHS funding unless major immigration enforcement reforms were included. They put forward 11 demands. Among them were requirements for judicial warrants before agents enter private property, mandatory body cameras for all CBP and ICE officers, an end to the use of masks in favor of standard uniforms, restrictions on enforcement actions near schools, hospitals, churches, and polling places, immediate access to counsel for detained individuals, and expanded authority for local governments to investigate or prosecute alleged misconduct by federal agents. Republicans said those demands went too far, arguing they would increase bureaucracy and create risk for officers, though they also indicated that some compromise might be possible. That compromise never materialized. The first shutdown period lasted 4 days from January 31st through February 3rd, when Congress temporarily funded most of the government, but only extended DHS for 2 more weeks. That short-term fix expired on February 13th. Talks collapsed. Lawmakers left Washington. At 12:01 a.m. on February 14th, the Department of Homeland Security entered a shutdown, and it has remained in that state ever since. Now let's talk about what that means for travelers. The first visible impact is at TSA. Since this shutdown began, 366 TSA officers have resigned. That number is significant not only because of the immediate staffing shortage, but because replacing them is not quick. Training and certification can take 4 to 6 months. In the meantime, absentee rates have surged. At Houston Hobby Airport on March 14th, reports indicated that about 55% of TSA officers did not report for duty, more than half the workforce. In New Orleans and Atlanta, absentee rates reached 30% or higher around March 15th and 16th. The result has been severe. Major outlets reported security waits stretching beyond 3 hours in some locations. Houston Hobby saw wait times reported over 3 hours. New Orleans exceeded an hour. Atlanta reached similar delays. Airports in multiple regions are now advising passengers to arrive 3 to 4 hours early, even for domestic flights. For international departures, some travelers are being urged to allow even more time. And here's the critical point many people don't realize until it's too late. If you miss your flight because of a TSA delay caused by this situation, airlines generally do not treat that as their responsibility. That means you should not assume an automatic refund or rebooking without cost. The situation may become even more serious. A senior TSA official told a major publication on March 17th that if this continues, Some smaller airports could temporarily stop operations because minimum screening staff would no longer be available. This is not speculation from social media. It reflects concerns from within the agency itself. Smaller regional airports depend on minimum staffing levels to remain open, and if enough screeners leave or call out, operations can grind to a halt. For travelers, this creates several immediate problems. If your itinerary includes a connection through a smaller airport, that airport may become a weak link in your travel plan. If you live in a city served mostly by a regional airport, your ability to fly may be severely disrupted. Now consider the human side of what is happening. DHS employs around 260,000 people, and roughly 90% of them, about 234,000, have still been required to report for duty even though their pay has been interrupted. By March 14th, more than 100,000 had missed a full paycheck. For TSA officers especially, this has been devastating. Many of them earn around $40,000 a year, making them among the lower-paid federal workers. This is now the third major pay disruption they have experienced within 6 months. In some cities, donation drives have reportedly been organized to support TSA workers and their families. Think about that for a moment. The people responsible for screening passengers at the nation's airports are, in many cases, still showing up without pay and under enormous stress. That does not mean travelers should fear mistreatment, but it does mean the system is stretched and unstable. The shutdown has also had consequences for trusted traveler programs. If you use Global Entry or plan to apply for it, pay close attention. On February 22nd, both Global Entry and TSA PreCheck were suspended nationwide. PreCheck was restored within hours after public backlash, but Global Entry remained unavailable for 17 days before being reinstated on March 11th. Even now, with the shutdown still unresolved, there is no guarantee that those systems will remain unaffected if the crisis deepens. Enrollment timelines and processing for new applications may also be slower or less predictable than usual. So, if you rely on these programs or if your membership is close to expiring, you should take that seriously. Now, let's move to the part that matters most for many people watching this. Immigration status, applications, visas, and green card cases. Here, the picture is mixed. The good news is that USCIS remains largely operational because much of its budget comes from filing fees rather than annual congressional appropriations. That means most standard USCIS work, H-1B petitions, adjustment of status applications, naturalization cases, employment authorization renewals, and other fee-funded processes, has continued. If you have a pending USCIS case, do not assume it has stopped. Keep checking your case status. Continue watching your mail. Respond promptly to any requests for evidence or notices. In many situations, your case is still moving, but mostly operational does not mean unaffected. Not every part of the immigration system is insulated. Labor certification processing connected to PERM cases may face slowdowns because those steps depend on the Department of Labor. If your employer is sponsoring a green card and your case is in or approaching the PERM stage, this could matter. The EB-4 Special Immigrant Religious Worker category expired on January 30th because the shutdown disrupted legislative renewal. Immigration courts in some areas have had to reschedule certain hearings. If you are in proceedings, you should not guess. Check directly with your lawyer or the court. E-Verify also deserves attention. Although it remained online during the shutdown, it did go offline during a previous shutdown in October 2025. If this crisis drags on, systems employers rely on to verify work authorization could face more disruption, which would directly affect hiring and onboarding for workers across the country. And DHS is much broader than airport lines and visas. FEMA significantly reduced operations on February 22nd, focusing only on essential disaster response. Certain airport courtesy services have been scaled back. The Coast Guard is still operating, but some civilian personnel are under pay restrictions. Secret Service recruitment activity has been frozen. In other words, this is not a narrow administrative inconvenience. It is a strain across the entire Homeland Security structure. So what should you do right now if you are traveling to, from, or within the United States? First, build in far more airport time than you normally would. For domestic travel, assume at least 4 hours before departure. For international travel, 5 is the safer number right now, especially during busy periods. Second, check whether your airport uses private screeners instead of federal TSA employees. A small number of U.S. airports operate through approved private screening contractors, and those sites may be less directly affected by this federal staffing crisis. If you have a choice between airports, that information could matter. Third, if you use trusted traveler programs, do not allow your membership to lapse casually. If your global entry or TSA pre-check is nearing expiration, renew it promptly if possible. There is no guarantee these programs will stay fully stable while the shutdown continues. Fourth, if you have a pending immigration matter, check your case status regularly and speak to your attorney about any time-sensitive filings or hearings. If you are in removal proceedings or have a PERM application pending, confirm everything rather than assuming the normal schedule still applies. Fifth, if you are traveling internationally, carry clean, organized copies of your key immigration documents: your passport, visa, I-94 if relevant, green card, EAD card, approval notices, or any other status-related records. In a period of disruption, the ability to immediately show documentation may help prevent long and stressful complications if you are stopped for additional review. There is also a psychological side to this shutdown that many travelers may not be thinking about. When you go through airport screening right now, the officers on the other side of the checkpoint are often working under extreme pressure and, in many cases, without current pay. Most of them remain professional and continue doing a difficult job under very hard circumstances. But this is not the time to be careless, rude, sarcastic, or confrontational at security. Have your documents ready. Listen carefully. Do not make jokes about airport security. Do not argue about the line. If you are a visa holder, a permanent resident, or otherwise dealing with an immigration-sensitive situation, stay especially composed. CBP and ICE continue to operate. Border searches have not stopped. Electronic device inspections at ports of entry have not stopped. Immigration enforcement has not stopped. What has weakened is the support structure around those systems. That can make the overall environment feel more chaotic and less predictable. So when will this end? At the moment, nobody can say with certainty. The Senate has voted 4 times and failed to reopen DHS. The bill needs 60 votes. Democrats have held firm on their reform demands. Republicans continue to oppose them as excessive. The White House reportedly floated a proposal on March 17th, but details remain unclear and progress appears limited. My analysis, again, this is analysis, not legal advice, is that this may continue through at least the end of March, and possibly longer if travel pressure and public frustration still don't force a deal. The 2018-2019 DHS shutdown lasted 35 days and was widely considered severe. We are already at day 33 now. If this stretches beyond early April, the situation moves deeper into territory that the current airport system is not built to absorb comfortably. So here's the bottom line. The airport system many travelers depend on is under strain. The immigration agencies many non-citizens depend on are functioning unevenly. The officers screening passengers and documents are often doing so without pay. And the political system that could resolve it has not done so. That means the burden shifts unfairly onto ordinary travelers to be more prepared than usual. Arrive earlier than you think you need to. Keep every immigration and travel document organized and accessible. Monitor your pending cases. Treat screening staff with patience and professionalism. Share this information with anyone traveling to the United States or within it during this period, because many people still think this is just another political story in Washington. It isn't. It is affecting real people, real flights, and real immigration situations right now. This is Timothy from US Updates Hub. Stay informed, stay prepared, and I'll keep watching the situation so you don't get caught off guard. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and if you rely on timely updates, follow our alert channels so that when the shutdown ends, or if the situation changes sharply, you hear about it as quickly as possible. Stay safe, travel carefully, and remember, in moments like this, preparation is your strongest protection.